It is such a pleasure to see you all this morning, welcome you all, and to see a room filled with change makers, decision makers, leaders, idea givers, bridge builders, doers in gender equality. Thank you for being here, and thank you also to everybody watching in the live stream to the release moment of this year's Gender Equality Index by EIGE, the European Institute for Gender Equality. My name is Helene Banner, and it's my pleasure to guide you this morning through the conference as your moderator, and we can really look forward to fresh insights today, the latest trends, where do we stand on gender equality in the European Union, but also in each and every member state. Gender norms and cliches and stereotypes are still ingrained in our minds and in many of our decisions, and today the findings that we will hear will make them visible because gender stereotypes still continue to shape our daily lives, decisions, and also opportunities. Let's hear about that from our colleagues and experts from EIGE. They will also bring a new methodology that they used this year in order to really make those gender stereotypes and barriers visible so that we can actually work on them. We will also hear inspiring voices from government, business, media, research, from people and action takers and change makers who are actually breaking gender stereotypes, who are taking the action. Let's get inspired today as well. And this is also my invitation to all of you as your moderator today. Let's use this morning also to recharge, right? You are all working on gender equality in different ways. I think it's not an easy time, right? To be active on gender equality, diversity and inclusion. Sometimes we also need to remind each other how important the topic is, give each other the energy back, and also let's make this also a reminder today of each and everybody of us, the power that we all have in our areas of work to change things, to change what is normal, and to keep going on gender equality. So are you ready for a great morning together? Ready for a great conference? I'm sure you are. Yes. Welcome all. Yes. And before we dive in, let me just make you aware of a few housekeeping points for today. I'm sure you have all received with your registration our EIGE Code of Conduct for Respectful Behavior and how we want to work with each other today in a respectful way. Thank you for being respectful for one another. But if, however, you notice, you witness, or you're even subject to inappropriate behavior that makes you feel uncomfortable, if you have any concerns, please talk to our colleagues from EIGE. You can recognize them with the white name tag badges here. They are here to support you and to help you. We would also like to thank the interpreters. We have international sign language interpretation today, so thank you, colleagues, for being here. And you will also meet EIGE colleagues, and maybe you have already met them here at 1 o'clock. When we finish today, there will be still coffee and snacks served, but you will also meet them here in the salon to answer your questions, to be able to see what EIGE has done this year, what are the different reports. But of course, we also want to hear from you here in the room. We will have a Slido tool later where you can ask questions. Everybody in the live stream, you can come in to engage with us. And I've already seen colleagues taking pictures. Maybe you will also meet somebody new today. If you take a picture, if you want to post it on social media, please use our hashtag. It is hashtag EIGE Index 2025. So that's hashtag EIGE Index 2025. And with that, I invite us all to enjoy the event. And I'm so happy to now welcome on stage to kick it off the director of the European Institute for Gender Equality, Carleen Schrele. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It is my true pleasure to welcome you to the release of our 2025 Gender Equality Index. To our partners, colleagues, and friends, on behalf of the agency, thank you for making the time to be here today, whether you are online or with us here at the Residence Palace. Firstly, I will briefly set the scene before handing over to my colleagues who will walk you through this year's index results and trends. As you know, every year we share the state of progress on gender equality in the European Union. And every year we face changing and evolving realities, as our evidence and insights highlight. This year, our Gender Equality Index confronts us with a truth that continues to shadow every part of our lives: gender stereotypes. They are not just opinions or attitudes, although that is one part of this persisting problem. They are a lot more powerful than we think. Gender stereotypes are the invisible framework which shape our choices, opportunities, and ambitions. In other words, they are holding us captive and preventing us from reaching our true potential. They reinforce segregated educational pathways, unequal pay, unequal care responsibilities, and barriers to leadership. So it makes sense that we are still over half a century away from reaching full gender equality. These issues are as old as time, but over time they have indeed shifted. The public perceptions of gender roles in the 90s are very different to how we see them today, which proves, luckily, change is entirely possible. So it is high time we set another new paradigm, because we absolutely can. Remember that this is our own doing. We, as a society, constructed gender stereotypes, and we, as a society, can deconstruct them. I am delighted that we have an exceptional lineup of expert leaders and voices here with us today, who will bring us up to speed on the real-world impact gender stereotypes have on our lives, from the media to the world of business, to the caring economy, and to the policy level. I am sure that their insights and experiences will strike a chord with every one of you and make you think, this is actually a familiar reality for me too. But before we hear from the speakers, our agency's experts, Irene Riobo and Davide Barbieri, will reveal the results from our Gender Equality Index 2025, which comes with an upgraded methodology. And I already heard from people in the room that they couldn't sleep last night because they're so eager to hear them. And I'm sure you're thinking, why an upgraded methodology? And why now? Well, if you think about how our phones go through a software upgrade every so often to be more agile, efficient, and reflective of consumer needs, we have done the same thing for advancing progress for gender equality. With our revamped methodology, we have a more modern, more responsive index, one that reflects digitalization, work-life balance, and the changing realities of life in Europe. We consulted more than 125 experts and 20 stakeholder groups to refine it. And I want to thank all those who contributed to making the index stronger and an even more powerful benchmark for gender equality progress. Because the insights from the 2025 Gender Equality Index, they're not simply data points, they're action points, crucial for shaping the next EU gender equality strategy. By identifying where gender gaps are widest and where gender stereotypes persist the most, our evidence provides a clear roadmap for targeted policies and actions. It helps policymakers, organizations, and civil society prioritize interventions that can dismantle barriers, promote gender equality in education, work, care and leadership, and ultimately ensure that the next strategy is informed by robust, up-to-date data and responsive to the realities people face across Europe. And I repeat here, it's not just data, it's true lived realities of people in the European Union. On that note, it is also my great pleasure to have Commissioner for Equality, Preparedness and Crisis Management, Hadja Labib, to talk us through what lies ahead for gender equality in the European Union, especially the political ambition and policy levers being mobilized to tackle and dismantle gender stereotypes. We are also joined by Josie Christodoulou, I should say it rightly, the Commissioner for Gender Equality in Cyprus, who will give us a first look into what to expect from the Cyprus presidency in the first half of 2026, which the agency is supporting with a report on cyber violence against girls. For this, we have taken a deep dive into the many forms of online violence girls aged 13 to 18 years experience. And I must alert you, what is happening online cannot be ignored, especially because it's moving faster than we can keep up with. And we will show it in the report, but it's really scary. If anyone thinks that this is a niche issue, consider the fact that Orange the World has placed a hyper-focus on digital violence this year for the 16 days of activism. And it truly demands attention at every level. So, coming back to our event today, as we move through the latest findings on gender equality, I invite all of you to reflect the data through one question. And please listen carefully and reflect on this. What would Europe look like if gender stereotypes no longer steered our decisions, expectations, and policies? This question is neither rhetorical nor theoretical, because I hope by the end of the event, you all come away with at least one concrete idea of how we can move forward and make it a reality together. Thank you very much, and I gladly hand back to Helene now.
Resonate your question one more time for everybody. How would Europe look like if gender stereotypes, the ideas about gender norms, were no longer steering our decisions? Let's reflect, let's let this resonate as we are now unveiling the latest data and the latest figure of how gender equality looks like in Europe in 2025. This is the report that we will now unveil. What's the state of play on gender equality in the EU? Where do member states stand individually? What progress can give us hope? Where is still reasons for concern? Let us first watch a short video and have a closer look at what the Gender Equality Index is all about this year.
When women and men don't have the same opportunities, everyone loses. That's why EIGE, as the EU's gender equality agency, built the Gender Equality Index. Since 2013, it's been monitoring equality between women and men across Europe. Each year, every EU country gets a score from 0 to 100. 100 means full equality between women and men. The index brings together 27 indicators so leaders can track progress and see where action is urgent. It measures equality across 6 areas of everyday life, what we call domains. Work looks at whether women and men have equal opportunities for good jobs and careers. Money considers how women and men earn and control their finances. Knowledge looks at what women and men study and how gender shapes who ends up in fields like science, technology, education or health. Time looks at who carries the burden of care and housework and the time available for leisure activities. Power explores who makes the decisions that affect all our lives in politics, business and in sports. Health shows us how women and men feel about their health, how long they live in good health, and how their everyday habits help or harm their well-being. The index also shines light on 2 additional areas with a profound impact on our lives. It tracks progress towards ending violence against women, and it provides insights into intersecting inequalities. That's how factors such as age, disability, family type, education or country of birth combine to increase inequality. These additional domains do not impact the final index score, but they provide important context to help improve the lives of everyone in Europe. As the EU's official measure of gender equality, the index delivers data you can rely on. It is trusted by policymakers, businesses, and civil society because it's grounded in reliable and comparable data based on a robust methodology. It's used to target investments, design better policies, and see what's working. See your country's score today. Compare it with others. And find where urgent action is needed. Turn insight into progress with EIGE's Gender Equality Index.
Let's turn insight into progress. Let's use the data today to take action. And you may know that it's been since 2013, so 12 years already, that EIGE has published a report and index every year. But this year is special, as we have already heard from Director Schrele, that there's a new methodology in the index for good reason. Let's have a closer look at this new methodology as well in our second video.
Think about your last smartphone update. You got new features while improving the security, speed and reliability of your device. For similar reasons, we're updating how we measure the Gender Equality Index for 2025 to match how you live and work today. Europe has changed since 2013, when the index was first launched. The jobs we do, the care we give, our digital lives, and how we live have all moved on. At EIGE, we believe the Gender Equality Index should reflect those changes. The index still gives each country a clear score out of 100 across 6 areas of everyday life: work, money, knowledge, time, power, and health. It also retains 2 additional and important lenses: violence against women and intersecting inequalities. So, what's new in 2025? First, we reflect our new realities. As our lives increasingly play out online, the index captures more of how people live and work today. With the goal of reaching 20 million ICT specialists by 2030, we track the gender balance of workers in the field who studies science and tech or education and health. Who works where? Across industries, types of jobs and job levels. The quality of work, such as low pay, and who does unpaid care. Second, we use new and improved data. We're using more granular and new data. This allows us to drill down to individual impact in some areas rather than household level, and to focus on the realities of groups often overlooked that brings clearer insights on income and pensions. And thanks to EIGE's new care survey, we now see not just who's providing unpaid care, but how much and how it affects equality. Third, we have adjusted our calculations. After wide consultation, we made small updates to the relative importance of each area in the index. The index focuses on gender gaps in a way that takes country context into account, So the results are easier to read and use. Importantly, you can still compare scores over time. We recalculated previous years using this updated approach, so you can see progress while spotting existing gaps and setbacks. How do you know you can trust this update? Before making this first major upgrade since 2013, we consulted 125 experts, reviewed 200 measures and held more than 20 stakeholder sessions. And then we reran the numbers for earlier years to allow analysis and comparison over time. Who benefits? Everyone. Policymakers, businesses and civil society get a sharper tool aligned with today's EU priorities, from digital to competitiveness, so they can better target investment, design better policies and see what's working. And with that, women and men across the EU can look forward to a more gender-equal future. To see how your country scores under the updated approach, what's changed and where action is urgent, visit EIGE's Gender Equality Index.
Okay, now we want to hear, of course, so what's in there. Let's hear the results, and we have the right experts for that here. Let's welcome on stage Irene Riobo and Davide Barbieri to present the Gender Equality Index. Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome to the presentation of the Gender Equality Index 2025. To begin, I want to take us back to 2013, when we first launched the index. And during that presentation, I opened my session with a quote from one of the most famous statisticians, that is George Box. He said that statisticians, like artists, have the bad habit of falling in love with their models. And indeed, we did fall in love with the Gender Equality Index because it's a tool that helps us to track progress and to advance gender equality in the EU. That love and that commitment have kept the index alive during all these years and also evolving with the policy needs, with the policy priorities, bringing us here today to present a refreshed and future-ready Gender Equality Index. So this session will help you to know the summary of the results and also to know the major innovations introduced in the index that are mainly focused on three topics: digitalization, caregiving, and financial independence. So let's start revealing the scores of the Gender Equality Index 2025. In this graph, we have the 2025 scores by every member state, from the lowest to the highest. So we can see that there is a significant variation among countries. The scores range from mid-40s at the lower end to above 70 at the top. In the middle, we see in gray the EU average of 63.4 points. There are many countries that are clustering around this average score, but also we can see that there are also countries that are well below that average, and only a small group of countries are above the EU average. Starting from the top, we have Sweden, France, and Denmark, our three best performing countries. So this performance is showing what a sustained commitment with gender equality can achieve. Nevertheless, even for these leaders, we cannot take the progress for granted, because even for them, for every member state, there is a lot of work to do in order to continue the progress in gender equality and even in order to accelerate that progress. So these results remind us all that achieving gender equality requires a continued effort, requires also budget, and requires vigilance across the whole process. So now we can see in the next graph that the trend, so how the EU scores have evolved in time. So in this chart, we can quickly see that the EU average has steadily improved over the last 15 years, moving from 52.9 in 2010 to 63.4 in 2025. But we can say that if this trend continues at the same speed, it will take us more than 50 years to reach gender equality in the European Union. Nevertheless, it's important to highlight at this point that all these averages, all these annual averages, are masking important differences among member states. For instance, if we focus on the short term, comparing 2020 with 2025, we see thus there is an improvement of 3.5 points. But this improvement have been very uneven. So if we check the improvement by member states, we can see that there are countries such as Lithuania, Ireland, or Malta that shows an important progress in the last years, but there are also some countries that are improving only slightly, and there are others that even have stagnated or worsened. So the key message here is clear. We need policies that are targeted and that are context-specific in each member state to guarantee that all countries are reaching full gender equality. So now Davide will present a summary of the results by domains. So let's see how the gender gaps are among the different areas of our life.
Yes, thank you, Irene, and good morning, everyone, again. So this is now the situation of the 6 domains. So you not need to get used to the new scores, but also to the new colors, I would say. You restyled a bit the index, so you can recognize all the domains with slightly changes, because of course also the style of index is changing and for the next year. So again, this year again, we see the domain of health as the driving areas of gender equality in the EU. However, as you see, it's almost stalling across the year. So there's no changes compared to 5 years ago. So still the situation of gender equality is relatively good in the EU, but still with some problems remaining. On the bottom, of course, again, as in the previous index, we have the domain of power. Still, persistent gender inequality in decision-making are present in almost all EU countries. Also, of course, we know from the past index, but for the new one as well, with new recalculation, that it's the pushing of increasing in almost all countries. In 5 years, 9 points more, but still is the lowest. So, big problem again on decision-making. And but now I would like to move to the first domain in which we have done the main changes. So you will see here, second domain is the domain of money. I will talk a bit later on. Then the domain of work, and then the domain of time. That is in the domain in which we are caring of care in the EU. We already knew that the involvement of men in caring is increasing. We already knew from the past index, from the past data, we knew. But now the novelty of the index is that we are considering intensity of care rather than yes or no. Intensity of care, because this really makes the difference in how we are measuring the differences between women and men. Intensity of care and daily involvement in housework and long-term care. So the first, and of course, we based the improvement on the index on our care survey that we managed to run last year, and we'll manage every 3 years. So we were aiming to update the domain of time every 3 years with these important novelties. First data based on the new survey. Well, another characteristic of the domain of time is that we split child care and long-term care that in the past were all together. Now we are able to distinguish the two different tasks men and women are taking on, and also with more granularity. This first indicator is exactly this one: how much women and men is taking care of children between 0 and 11. So really, at least in the family, there are at least one child below 12 years old. And this is the difference. Almost more than double of women compared to men are taking care of children 0-11, more than 35 hours a week. So it's an average of 5 hours a day. So this is the big differences of intensity that differentiate women and men. And then another indicator we introduce is houseworking. We focus on chores, tasks, so cleaning, cooking, and laundry every day, and almost 2 in 3 women doing these tasks every day, compared 33%, so 1 in 3 of men. And then while looking at the long-term care, these are the figures. We shrink the range of age to 45 to 64, exactly to focus more on the range of age in which people have parents in the older age or with more difficulties. So this is another example of granularity and individualization of the index. And these are the figures we have now. So 20% of women in this range of age are taking care of older people or disabled people every day, compared 30% of men. So, and then of course, this is important again to say, we included some data on gender stereotypes also impacting this important area of our life. We already know that men are taking over more than in the past childcare, but we still see that 1 in 5 women and men in the EU associate men's parental leave with a lack of career ambition. So many people still think that if man is taking parental leave, they are less attached to work. And then on the other side, 50% of EU people, both women and men, think that men are less competent as housekeeper compared to women. So almost the majority of half of us thinks, not half of us, of course, in this room, but the majority of people think that men are not able to. So gender care gap is a really important issue for boosting the gender equality in the EU. This is why we included and we pushed a lot of effort on it. But this is not the only one, of course. And then Irene will talk about the second one that introduced the digital divide.
Yeah, thanks, Ayu. So yeah, we are very, very proud to have included for the first time in the index a focus on digitalization, because this is not just a new topic. Digitalization in the index implies a big step forward, implies a big improvement in the measurement framework of the index, and is responding also to a growing policy priority and policy needs. So digitalization, we know that is transforming our societies, our life, the way we work, our education systems, everything. And in order to ensure that these transformations are viewed with a gender lens, we thought that the inclusion of this type of indicators in the index was extremely relevant. Also because we need them to design more effective and forward-looking policies at the EU level. So to do this, we have included 2 new indicators that help us understand better the gender digital divide, both in the domain of work and the domain of knowledge. So in the domain of knowledge, we now measure the share of STEM graduates, meaning graduates in the field of statistics, technology, engineering, and maths. And as you can see in the following graph, only 30% of STEM graduates in the EU are women, compared to 66% of men. And this gap really matters, because what happens in education doesn't start or stop in education. It has a big impact in the entire labor market. We see that women are lost along the digital pathway in every step of the life course, from the early education to the career progress or to leadership position, in every step of the life course. In the other domain, in the domain of work, we have included an indicator on ICT, employed ICT specialists, that are specialists in information communication technologies. So here the gender gap, you see it, is even bigger. In the EU, only 20% of ICT specialists in the labor market are women, compared with 80% men. And when we look together these 2 indicators and we analyze them together, the message is clear. We see that the gender digital divide is not just about individual choices. It's something structural, is permanent, is deeply embedded in our education and labor market systems. And why this is so important? Because it has serious implications. It has implications in working conditions, in the gender pay gaps, and ultimately in the pension gaps, in the pension inequalities. So this is shaping the economic independence, again, along the life course, in the different stages of the life course. In order to better understand the consequences of this digitalization, this digital divide, we move to the last part of the session today, where Davide will present a summary of the results in the domain of money, and in order to have more information to contextualize the results. So over to you, Davide.
Yes. One of the most persistent challenges we had in the past years is to catch exactly the differences in earnings between women and men. So we had to rely on, for many years, on data collected at household level, not at individual level. That meant to have, in the past, we had much more difficult to really see the real power of women and men in managing their money, because the assumption was that the income, basically, and the earning at household level has the same decision-making, women and men had the same decision-making power to decide on how to spend money, how to set standard of living in their households. This year we made a great effort, not easy, but we managed to have 4 indicators based on individual level, so based mostly on earnings. And we will start saying that from now on an yearly basis, we are updating our gender pay gap, not using the gender pay gap of the EU, because it was mostly based on hourly wage, but we are basing on earnings, real earnings. So we see now that 70% in 2024, 70% women are earning 70% of the earning of men, so 25% less than men. And this is a starting point to analyze the earning divide. And then another important innovation we made, I hope you will get familiar with this indicator we are really proud of. We, again, to catch more granularity in our data, we are now measuring from now on the ratio of differences in the ratio of in earnings of women and men living in couple. So we are taking a man and a woman in the analysis, and we compare their earnings against their partner. So at the EU level, in the working age, so at the EU level, this is a figure at the EU level, a woman living in couple earns 70% of the earnings of her partner. While on the reverse side, a man living in couple earns 142% of the earnings of their respective partner. So 52% more of the earnings. And we will also see, we don't have so much time to go deeper into intersectionality, but we are doing, again, analysis on different groups. And we will see here that the low-educated women, the low-educated women are really, and also foreign-born, and they are the women that are suffering the most, the differences compared to their respective partner. So you will see the figure overall. And then for the first time also we have included in the index the gender pension gap. Gender pension gap. That again is an individual measure, and we see at the EU level again women are the gender pension gap is 25%. Women in the older age, when they stop to work, they have 20% pension lower than men in the EU. So again, final message from our side, lower pay, part-time, limited working hours, career breaks due to caregiving are the most relevant problems for women to boost their capacity to be economic independent across all the lives. And this is a burden that we have to take care of and for the future actions. I'm stopping here. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Davide and Irene. Let's give a small applause already. This is your work.
Yes.
We want to thank you for your work already, and I can already say, because I had a glimpse, everything is explained also in text form. If you are more a text person like me, if you are more a numbers person, you get all the granular data that you just presented in the report. And we have so many questions, I'm sure. If I may, Irene, ask you already, who would you like to use this report, and how would you like them to use it?
Well, in these times of disinformation and the growing anti-gender movements, I would say that the added value of the Gender Equality Index is that provides reliable data on how women and men are living in the EU. So, replying to your question, I would say everyone. Everyone could use the index, but if I have to select, let me talk about three groups. So first I can mention the people in general, so carers, workers, partners. So the index helps people to better understand that their own experiences are not isolated. So for instance, women can see that the heavy care that she carries is shared by millions of other women in the EU. And a boy can see also that boys are usually lag behind in education, and usually they are facing several risks, for instance, alcohol consumption later in life. No? So the index helps to visualize, to make visible these patterns, and to provide a kind of context to our daily life. Another important group, businesses, for instance. So businesses can use the index to compare their own performance, for instance, their own data on gender pay gaps or their own data on leadership positions, the internal data in the company, with the data at national level or at EU level. And this will help companies to set specific targets, or to be more transparent, or to use this information for external reporting, so they can make several use of that internal benchmark. Also, for companies, we know that the index highlights important gender inequalities, structural inequalities. For instance, gender pay gaps, or for instance, the gaps in leadership positions. So the companies could use also this information to establish specific targets and to improve the HR policies. And finally, I cannot conclude without mentioning policymakers, because policymakers can transform the index results into changes, into realities in a better society. No? So the index can help them in many, many ways. For instance, to design a policy, or to monitor a measure, or to target budgets, or to identify best practices in other countries, no, and try to replicate them, and many others, to design a new strategy or a new plan. The index can inform in the objectives and can inform in the structure itself of the plan. No, so to conclude.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So people to feel that
all of
realize
us.
all of us,
For all of us,
realize that our experience is not isolated. Businesses to meet their targets and to compare targets. And let's not forget, it breaks down the numbers per member state of the EU and at European level. So there's a lot of gold in here. So we've heard a lot. The report itself has 170 pages, Davide.
Yeah.
If you had to break it down, what would be the 3 main messages that we should take away from the report?
Yeah, we have tried to summarize many of taking away today. So first of all, I would say, even though we have progress on gender equality in the last years, 10 years, 15 years, but still there are still many things to do in many countries. And we still need, again, policies at EU level, at member state level, and continuous commitment on taking care of gender equality in each member state. Because the gain we had, they are not granted, and we already know there are many evidences that now we can have step backs, and this is exactly why we need the index. We need the index every year to make countries and people and business and to reflect on what they are what is going well, what is going worse, and then year by year. And then also, let's say, the chain of empowerment of women and men in the EU. So meaning that we need, of course, we need more employment for women, and we try to demonstrate that it's starting from the early age in the school, when, again, we need to reduce gender divide in education, we need to reduce gender divide in employment, increase the capacity of women to enter the labor market, and to finally, again, take care of care gap. That is one, again, big message we are going to deliver. And then, again and again, unfortunately, decision-making, we already said, so we didn't put so much attention today, but it's important to stress that still women are not present in many, less present than men, much less, in many areas of our lives. And if we are thinking also in these difficult days, also in defense, in security, there are really low number of women that could take care of topics also from a gender perspective. So, well, 3 main intakes, and then, so read the report and ask us, and then we are really happy to respond further in the next days, months, and years.
Thank you so much, Davide Barbieri and Irene Riobo, for your insights. And of course, all EIGE experts are here for you to answer your questions, to give you more insights. And this is also the moment, now we have the figures, let's discuss them, let's explore what we can do, because I feel as if you have now handed us the report. Now it's for all of us to take action. And we have amazing leaders here today who are taking action. And this is what we want to discuss now in our panel discussion, and to discuss how much gender stereotypes still have a firm grip on us, even if they're invisible in government, in business, in the media. And before we do that, we want to hear a little bit of inspiration on this topic, and let us welcome on stage for that the team leader for research and statistics at the European Institute for Gender Equality, Jolanta Reingade. Welcome on stage.
Don't judge a book by its cover. We heard it all many times, but unfortunately in today's world, we are judged even before we start opening that book. Scientists say that it takes less than 1/10 a second, even faster than a blink, for our brain to start judging someone. Mathematics has always been one of the favorite subjects of my daughter, but when she was 12 and she had a mathematical problem, she approached her teacher for advice. And her teacher advised her to consult a boy, ironically, the one who was struggling with the math the most in her class. And that sent a very clear message to me, and I think it sends a clear message to everyone. What is the power of stereotypes when children's expectations or expectations toward children start building even long before they themselves discover their potential? And it's not about just limiting their opportunity, it's also rewriting the story. Who is seen in the society to be gifted, to be capable, or to be curious? So the power of stereotypes is huge. But if we compare stereotypes of today, and if we go back to and look on how stereotypes look like in the 90s, we actually have to admit that progress is undeniable. Attitudes changed. Today, if I could just tell you on average, how many people on average in Europe have more egalitarian views, that would come up to around 60%. 6 out of 10 people overall in the European Union actually agree that women's professional lives are not secondary anymore to their family roles, or that man's main role is not necessarily to earn money. Of course, we all know where most of these people live. You can guess, not equally shared across Europe, and I'll talk about it. But this shift in mindset actually goes hand in hand with gender equality. If you take a look at these attitudes to gender roles alongside gender equality index scores, the picture is very clear that countries that rank higher in gender equality index would embrace much more egalitarian views, while more conservative, more traditional views would usually cluster more in those countries that are at the top of the ranking. So basically the message is very clear, it's obvious, stereotypes are not fixed. They're shaped by society, and they can be reshaped by society if certain efforts and certain job is done. This year, and also actually last year, we analyzed 2 Eurobarometers on gender stereotypes and also violence against women. We also looked in World Value Survey, European Value Study, alongside the insights of gender roles in our own care survey. So we really had a very solid empirical base for our analysis, and it provided us a very, very clear snapshot of how Europeans experience, how they live with it, what they think about the roles of women and men. And what we found is that we in the EU are worlds united and the worlds apart. And let me share three observations with you. First, If you ask Europeans overall about gender equality, everyone, more or less everyone, will agree that it's very important for democratic society, and that vast majority would even recognize that men benefit from gender equality. For example, that university education is not necessarily just a privilege for men anymore, and that on these aspects we are united. But deep divides still remain, and they are mostly related with female family priority and men's work advantage. Here are the deepest divides. Let me give you a few statistics on that. For example, the belief that women's main role is to care for family ranges from only 10% in Sweden, where people will say yes, to 74% in Bulgaria. In Sweden, just 1 in 10 people think that men's most important role is to earn money, while 80% of people think like this in Slovakia. So perceptions of violence also differ a lot across EU, especially when it comes to such forms of violence as non-consensual sharing of images or economic violence. And if in one country it's 1 in 10 believe that women make up or exaggerate claims of violence, we have countries where every second man is holding this view. So this is the difference we're talking about. So basically, to conclude this first observation, we show that paths towards equality are very, very different, and they're very uneven, and of course, job is not done. It's a lot still needs to be done. The second observation is when it comes to perceptions on care, here the attitudes are most divided, most controversial as well. For example, David mentioned already, mostly people think that for men to take parental leave, it's enriching for himself, for a child, for a family. Women and men equally hold this view that it's good to engage men in caring, but at the same time, every second man, but also every second woman do not think that men have to take parental leave if he earns less. Likewise, 1 in 2 men also think, but also women, 1 in 2 women think that men are not competent to do housework. So as a result, this basically leads to the fact that closing gender care gaps is actually much more difficult than to close care gaps in other areas. And the progress in changing behaviors in the household, it's far slower than the progress in other areas. And the third observation is that up to now, we used to think of intergenerational differences when it comes to gender attitudes. You see, okay, this is what older people think, and this is what younger people think. Today, we are seeing diverging views within one generation, the generation that is supposed to lead a change and to bring us to a more equal society. It's a generation of young people, more or less between 60 to 24, are having increasingly diverging views. And we noticed that in 3 areas. One, in relation to work. 40% young people, 2 times more than young women, think equality at work is achieved. We have equality in hiring, in promotion, in pay. If men are paid more, according to young men, it's because they're doing more competent job. And that is fair, because their jobs require high competence, or they're more demanding. The second area where views are very diverging is in relation to leadership and ambition. Every 3rd young man and 50% young women think men make better leaders. And the third area is violence against women. Around half of young men, every second young man, thinks that it's acceptable to control your partner's finances, activities and relationships, such as mobile phone use. In one country, every third man thinks that if woman says no, it actually means yes, and she is playing hard to get. Every 3 men. So, and these divisions, these different views, they extend to other areas as well. What they think about climate change, what they think of sexual and reproductive rights. On feminism, the gap within the group of young people is largest compared to other age groups. The fact that feminism went too far, thinks 47% of young men, compared to 28% of young women. So these findings reveal quite a somehow troubling reality that we need to reflect on today. So the challenge ahead before us is immense, but immense is an opportunity as well. So evidence is in our hands, and we know that that stereotypes is a powerful driver of inequality, but we also know that they can be reshaped. I look forward to hear the insights that our speakers will share today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolanta, for the inspiration and for dismantling the stereotypes that are ongoing everywhere in Europe, still in our minds. And as we are now changing the setting for the stage to welcome our panelists in a moment, let us remember what you just said. Gender stereotypes are not fixed. We can change them. We have shaped them. That also means the good news is we can also change them. And before we invite actually the panelists on stage, can I ask you to bring out your phones, and can I ask the technicians to give us the QR code for our Slido poll, because we want to ask you first for your views on gender stereotypes. We will now discuss what can we do, what actions can we take in order to bring gender stereotypes down. And we want to ask you for your reflection, what actions needs to be taken to bring down gender stereotypes? Let's take a small moment for you to answer. So what are the concrete actions to break down gender stereotypes? Who needs to act? What do we need to do? Oh, wow, I can see the first coming in. Maybe you can see it on your phone as well. I see education, education, education. Transparency, speaking up. We need legislation, is what you're saying. We need to make these different roles more visible, something that we're doing today, right, with the report. Yeah, many of you are saying we need to provide more evidence to raise awareness. Some of you are saying we need more political commitment. I think we're all here for that as well. We need to improve job quality, working conditions. Be loud, engage communities who are at the forefront of fighting gender stereotypes and trans people. Thank you for that comment as well. We need to lead by example. Thank you all for coming in. We have more than 40, almost 50 respondents. I'm really grateful for your views. Let's get inspired as well. There's so much we can do. And let's also remember, this is not what the others should do. We can all do a small part, and it can be in one conversation, it can be in one gesture, and of course, if you are a business, a political change maker, a stakeholder here in Brussels, yeah, we can change it every day. It's in our hands, even if it becomes challenging. We are not alone in this, as we can see here. Thank you for your first reflections, and how about we now invite our panelists on stage to discuss. So may I invite all our panelists on stage, and I will introduce them with you one-on-one. Let's give a warm round of applause for our experts, for our panel, and welcome here on stage. Paula. come to the middle. Christian, you will sit on the side. Come towards me. Thank you for being here, and thank you all for being here to let's discuss how we can actually dismantle this firm grip of gender stereotypes in our societies. And I'm so happy to introduce to you a panel of experts and leaders on that. May I start with you? Christian is here, coming in from Tallinn, so thank you for coming to Brussels today. Christian is Estonia's commissioner for gender equality and equal treatment. You will bring with you today very concrete experience on how you are working on very concrete discrimination that you are receiving and working on in Estonia. And in your position, you are also especially focused on AI-driven discrimination and bias. We'd love to hear from that. And you are also especially looking at the responsibility of governments in dismantling gender stereotypes. Christian Weske, thank you for being here and for your insights today. Then let me continue on Christian's right. We have Jennifer Moreau coming in from Luxembourg today. Thank you, Jennifer. You are the Senior Sustainable Development Advisor and Gender Equality Officer at Luxembourg's National Railway Company, the CFL Group. So a very male-dominated sector, railway. However, you have also since 2022 coordinating the Women at CFL project, and we are looking forward to hearing more about that, Jennifer. Jennifer also has ample experience in international institutions and government. You have been advising the French government. You have been working at OECD, UN level, at the European Commission. So thank you for bringing up all of your experience today, and especially the business experience from the National Railway Luxembourg. Jennifer Moreau is here with us. Thank you. And then we are so happy to having here from Helsinki, Uti Jalonen is here from the European Center of Excellence for Countering Hybrid Threats, Hybrids COE. We are looking forward to hearing about your work because you are working on something, Uti, that I find so important to highlight and also dismantle, the cognitive strategies and cultural resilience that we need. You will actually talk to us about how gender stereotypes are also used and abused in disinformation as targets and tools for spreading uncertainty and disinformation. We are looking forward to hearing more about your work. Thank you for being here, Uti Jalonen from Hybrid COE. And finally, to my left, thank you for being here, Paula Soler, originally from Madrid. You are a Brussels-based journalist for the Parliament magazine since this month, and you have been previously with Euronews, with the EU Observer here in Brussels, where you have been covering as a journalist the EU's social, economic and defense policies, but you are also an expert in examining how gender equality shapes Europe's workforce and competitiveness, and I'm so happy that you are also here to report for us how it is to be a young female journalist here in Brussels. So thank you, Paula, for being here. Maybe I start with you, Paula, with the question on gender stereotypes in your daily work. How does that ring a bell with you? How are you facing, as a young journalist here in Brussels, gender stereotypes on a daily basis?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned.
Oh, we need a microphone for you. There you go.
Thank you. Hi. So thanks for having me here. And of course, you just mentioned it. I'm covering finance and defense. I have been doing this for 3.5 years now in Brussels. So you can all imagine that it's a very male-dominated area, defense, but also finance. So I usually face so many challenges on a daily basis to cover these topics. So of course, I have seen a lot of mansplaining. Even when I have very specific questions on particular topics, I sometimes get all these oversimplified replies and lectures that sound so patronizing. But I have also experienced the opposite. So sometimes even when I know what I'm talking about, some sources perceive me as a non-reliable person to talk to, and this is of course happening out of the newsroom, but I must also admit that I see it in some newsrooms as well. You mentioned it, I have worked for a couple of news outlets already here in Brussels and also in Spain. And I also experienced with some colleagues some attitudes that could change or improve, we could say, you know. And earlier this year, I also started doing some TV, and I think you can all imagine that this opens a whole new type of challenges, because you get a lot of sexist comments online, as you and all the other experts mentioned earlier today, by email, by social media, and then your work is no longer that valuable. They are talking about the way you look. And this is, of course, very, very challenging. But indeed, I have also seen that earlier this year, for example, a female colleague told me, you shouldn't be wearing this skirt for this interview, because then people are not going to listen to the smart things that you have to say. They are going to be looking at your skirt. And she even asked me to change my skirt for some pants, and it felt embarrassing. I also felt kind of nervous when I was doing the interview later that day, because I could only think about that.
But you did wear the skirt.
I did wear the skirt because I didn't have pants, and my colleagues couldn't borrow me one pair of pants. So at the end, I did it with my skirt. But all I could think about was those sentences and the panic that it created for me. So.
Thank you so much, Paula, for taking us behind the scenes, actually, of your daily work. You're covering gender equality, but actually you are also facing the stereotypes every day. And thank you for sharing on behalf, I think, of so many of us. Dealing with that on a daily basis, I think it's also important that we hear that and that we're not alone. And you are also not alone in facing that. We will talk in a minute about what we need to do. Let me turn to you, Christian, and ask you, gender stereotypes on a daily basis. I can imagine that in your work as Commissioner for Gender Equality in Estonia, you are also dealing with that every day. Can you let us into your work day? In which way?
Microphone working?
Yes, now it is.
Okay. First, I actually want to thank my previous ex-colleagues from EIGE, because I think this presentation that you gave, these insights to the index, I think this frame very nicely of what we experience in a way every day. And we have the saying at our office that gender stereotypes come to the office before we arrive there. So meaning that our work is so closely linked to gender stereotypes and how they manifest themselves in everyday lives. Because what's discrimination? Discrimination really is very often a result of negative gender stereotypes that have been kind of attached to people and attached to certain expectations towards people. So that's when people feel this injustice or unfairness towards them, they turn to us and ask us to look into this specific situation. So what we see is really that very often these same old, very tired stereotypes are coming back. They keep coming back over and over again.
Example?
Yes, and they tend to be really around. Very often around parenthood, like the parental obligations, also certain age groups of women and men. So I think it's often what we see as well is it's not only the gender stereotypes, but it's a combination of different stereotypes. We have attitudes towards, for example, women. In certain age groups, it's a different attitudes that women face. But also it can be any other combination, like gender and sexuality, or nationality and gender. So it's a lot of different possibilities there. So indeed, every day we deal with those and hopefully making the world better, or Estonia better, as we go along with our work.
Well, thank you for dealing with the gender stereotypes and making them visible, and also making people feel seen, because if they come to you because they feel discriminated, it's great to hear they have a place to go to, and we will hear in a minute a bit more of how you take action. Jennifer, can I come to you? Because we know the rail sector is traditionally a male-dominated sector, but the National Rail Luxembourg is actually doing something about it, and it's you taking action. How do gender stereotypes shape your work and the rail sector? What would you say?
Thank you for the invitation, and also congratulations on the hard work done in relation to the index today. I'm indeed very happy to represent the CFL group today, but also, in a sense, the railway sector and the transport sector, which is, as you said correctly, Helene, very male-dominated. To give additional figures today, according to the latest Women in Rail report published in September, we have in average 23% of women in the railway sector at European level. And actually in Luxembourg, we only have almost 16% of women and much less on operational jobs, such as locomotive drivers, but also jobs related to the maintenance of infrastructure. So this is the situation, and obviously there's a lot of bias stereotypes linked to the jobs in the railway sector within our organizations, but also outside the organizations. For instance, some clients, they still think that women drivers will brake more smoothly than men drivers. So there is kind of quite a lot of things that needs to be done in order to increase the presence of women within this sector, but a lot of things are going on, and I think we have this panel also to give some very concrete examples of what we are doing, but also other railway enterprises actually are doing on the European level.
You are taking it on, that old image that certain sectors are mostly for men. Thank you for your first insights, Jennifer. And let's hear from you, Uti, because what you are working on actually, and we would actually like to understand also more about your work, is you are basically putting a limelight on something that has been going on in the last years that many of us can only feel. It's very, very difficult to grasp. What are you working on? Can you give us a bigger insight into your work on dismantling gender stereotypes?
Well, yes, thank you. So, as you mentioned, I'm working in the European Centre of Excellence for Countering Hybrid Threats, commonly known as Hybrid COE. So we are an independent think tank, but we do have all EU and NATO members as our participating states. And we are doing many things other than disinformation, which is my focus. So we are also concentrating on critical vulnerabilities, lawfare, economic coercion, you name it. But my work is mainly on disinformation that's targeting social identities, such as gender, race, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, and how these are used by hostile actors like Russia, China, Iran, non-state actors, you name it, and to destabilize our societies.
Can you give us a first insight? What are the typical measures that you observe, what they are exactly doing to destabilize our societies?
Well, they're attacking, for example, women politicians or women public figures in general. They can be journalists, they can be, well, anyone basically in the public sector, and using the existing stereotypes that we already heard of and prejudiced in a society, and then attacking them personally. So using negative emotions in society, such as fear, anger, rage, disgust, and then just putting them in social media and boosting this information that's already there, and therefore targeting them and trying to dismantle them.
Thank you so much for your insights in this important work. Paula, I'm sure you are faced with disinformation on a daily basis as a journalist. Your work as journalist is also to distinguish, to dismantle, to make sure there's trust again in information, right? Can you give us an insight on how you deal with disinformation when you report, for example, on gender equality? Can you give us a little experience there?
Yes. So I always try to rely on data and on figures, and that's why I think that this report and other reports or figures coming from Eurostat, for example, they are always very useful because these narratives that we see online, they are usually very simple, very basic. So if we have figures and we have numbers and data that are reliable and that are up to date, they are the most easiest way to counter those narratives, to say, okay, you're saying this, but actually this is not the truth. And we just have to look at the numbers. We just have to talk to the right experts. It's also good to, of course, be in touch with policymakers. So whenever we see something, we always try to reach out to the Commission, to MEPs. What do you think about this? How can we fight all this information that we see? So it's good to be fast. It's good to be collaborative with everyone involved. Civil society is also doing a lot. We also have a lot of NGOs doing a great work at this respect. So I always try to engage with everyone, and also I try to be fast because they are very fast. And indeed, we see many comments online, and it's very easy to just publish another tweet and engaging in that hate. So I think that we gotta be more positive. We gotta be more constructive, and we gotta talk about facts.
And you are challenging these stereotypes in your work. As you say, media have a responsibility also in that. Would you say that? And what are you doing in your daily work to challenge, to rattle gender stereotypes?
Yes, definitely. So first of all, I think the best way to do this is, of course, to talk about these topics. And this is already challenging because we see that some news outlets pay more attention to social affairs, to equality in general, not just to gender equality, but some other times it's a bit more challenging. And for me, for example, at EU Observer, I had the privilege, and I'm calling it a privilege, because they let me write about social affairs on a daily basis. And this is something rare, not only in Brussels, I would say, but it is more challenging to work for other news outlets and let them understand that this is also something that should be covered regularly, and that there are important things that citizens care about that are happening at this respect, right? So right now I feel like we're relying a lot on the journalists that are working for the different news outlets to cover these topics.
And you also
on
said
a voluntarily
it's often women covering these topics. Yes. You were also saying, right?
Indeed. Whenever I go to press conferences, whenever I go to press breakfast on gender equality, on things related to violence against women, you see that most of us are women. Sometimes there are some male colleagues covering these topics, but it's also a rare thing to see. So I would say that indeed it would be great if news outlets would be more interested in covering these kind of topics, and not only whenever we have International Women's Day and they feel like they gotta publish something because it is International Women's Day. But we have so many things going on every day, and we should also pay attention to those topics.
Thank you for pushing your editors to put it on the agenda. You are one of the journalists who puts the topic on the agenda beyond International Women's Day. It's so important because so many of the editors are also men.
Yes.
So thank you for doing it and for putting the limelight on that. Christian, coming back to what you shared as well on the discrimination on gender stereotypes that you're receiving, I guess, on a daily basis. What actions are you taking? How are you challenging gender stereotypes? How do you support the people who come to you?
Yeah, I think actually one of the sort of things that I've realized in my work now is that when we take contact with the other party, then who has been kind of like other party in the discrimination, I see this pattern in a way that we can somehow divide this in the responses in two. So there are the ones who say, who discriminate just because they want to. because they have these beliefs about women and men, and they quite often tell us off. They tell us like, why do you even exist? We don't need you, your institution. But then there are the ones that, and I think this is a majority, who tell us, oh, but we had no idea. We didn't think about it, that what we said or did was in any way discriminatory. And I think this is the sort of group of people that we can work with, and they can understand that, okay, maybe if with a bit of a reflection, maybe next time I will not do so. But overall, like if you ask like some concrete examples, of course, like we've had several different campaigns and very clever campaigns as well, and we've done like work towards schools as well, and especially what's important that the younger kids generally tend to be left out from the discussions about stereotypes. So what we did, for example, earlier this year, we especially targeted younger kids. But I have to say that it's important really to realize that these campaigns, they are important, but I think this is a structural problem with the stereotypes, so you can't really solve it with even clever campaigns.
Yeah, you said to us that, it's not enough to just do nice videos on social media, we have to do more.
Yeah,
right?
and I think this is, of course, where governments, like different branches of government, have a very clear role to play, because it's not really the gender equality policies that need to address the gender stereotypes. It's across the board, across the whole policy areas. And we have some very interesting examples from Estonia as well that kind of look at the sort of structural nature of this. For example, I give you one example that has been looking at the technology side of things, and Estonia likes to pride itself as a very technologically advanced country, and this is almost our national narrative. But at the same time, we still see that that girls quite often tend to be left out from these technology groups. And we've had a very a wise person who initiated this. It's been going on for years now, this campaign, or not campaign, but a program rather, Unicorn Squad, which is specifically targeted at girls in the schools. It's a whole methodology, and it's become so popular across the country, and now it's part of already the sort of school, the way they provide technology learning for girls. And I hope that it, in the end, will translate also for us a higher number of girls taking in the labor market the jobs that are related to technology, because it's definitely something that is needed there.
Thank you also for reminding the government action that needs to be taken in all ministries, in all departments, not just on the social affairs or the gender equality department, but across the board. I think you are an important voice as well, reminding governments. And if we now look again at the business side, because as business, of course, businesses are flexible, that's also an opportunity, especially in crises. Jennifer, you said to us that one of your goals in your campaigns is that a young girl in Luxembourg may say, I want to work for rail one day. Tell us a bit more about the actions you are taking to get more women into leadership positions, to get more girls to be interested in the transport and railway sector.
Yes, indeed, a lot of things have been going on in the railway sector, in particular since the signature of the Women in Rail Agreement in November 2021. It is an agreement signed by most enterprises, railway enterprises in Europe, with the objective, obviously, of strengthening gender equality, but also tapping into the potential of women. Given also or against the background of the development of the railway sector in Europe. But one big barrier is obviously bias And we are trying, as well as other enterprises, to really attract and recruit women and to fight against these stereotypes. And we have been developing a lot of actions with one objective, one message is talent has no gender. Really, talent has no gender, and we tried, for instance, to message this through specific actions, such as one specific woman page on our career page. We have also a lot of presentations of jobs and missions by women on our specific blog, and we have developed two big campaigns, HR marketing campaigns. One, it's called Voix Féminine, Feminine Voices, and the other is called Empowering Journey. And really, the different actions try to showcase women in railways, in particular in operational jobs, in order to create role models. And I think everyone is going to be also stressing that out, and it has also come in the different comments, the importance of role models, of examples in order to inspire other women. This is something we want to do, but it's not everything we want to do. We are doing more. Also in relation to recruitment, what we have done, we have developed a charter for gender-sensitive writing. And
so the job openings are already
exactly. And actually, for the job openings, but not only, we are actually applying it also on internal and external communication. I don't know if you've ever seen a job description which is only written in feminine. Ooh. And this is quite powerful. I think Deutsche Bahn has tested this out, and the impact on women, at least it had on me, was really powerful. I thought, okay, this job is for me. I envision myself in this job.
Wow. And so could you just explain? So that means it's not even gendered language, it's only feminine.
Yes, this was an experiment, but to show that actually if you write in feminine, or if you write at least in a neutral way, you will attract more women because they can envision themselves in the job, whereas in job postings where you only write in masculine, where you say, okay, is it something for me? Is this really, really powerful? And sometimes it's complicated to explain why it's important. And some people say, oh, but it's cumbersome, the texts are more difficult to write, but it's really key to attract women in these positions. We are also developing some specific trainings on stereotypes for recruiters and managers to make sure that once a woman is interested in one job, afterwards the recruiters and managers are not influenced by the stereotypes when choosing the person. Very important. And last but not least, also one key concept that has been also raised in the different responses is education. We think as an enterprise it's very important to also fight stereotypes as of a very young age. This is why we have been working now and developing since 3 years Girls and Boys Days at the CFL Group to invite girls and boys to discover our jobs, our missions, our activities. And we have actually presented last Saturday a little book on our different jobs, which is written obviously in a manner to fight stereotypes that you think you will find really some women and men who are representing our different jobs, and it's a little girl who is actually discovering this job. These different jobs, and this is also the basis for the different presentations we will do of our jobs in schools. Wow. So we want to really, and we see our responsibility to go also into education, at least information of our small passengers, yes, women or girls and boys.
I mean, we hear the school example already. Education, education, education. Christian, come on in.
Yeah, just maybe a little bit to bring in another example. I think this was really fantastic what you just talked about. But one example from my office work as well that we've been doing regarding the job and vacancy announcements. We've been developing with the developers now an AI system. Because one of our core tasks is also to monitor the job vacancy announcements in the public domain and identify where the discriminatory announcements are. And it's, if you have to do it manually, it's obviously a very tedious task and it takes a lot of time. So we've developed and we will release this week a AI system called Valdur. It's a funny name in Estonian, but so it regularly goes through these vacancy announcements and identifies very well for us where are these discriminatory vacancy announcements. It also gives us the background why certain wording or even a picture could be discriminatory or why it kind of relies on gender stereotypes. So this is something definitely we will promote further, and I think it really helps us to make our work more efficient and to address these emerging stereotypes in a more efficient way.
Thank you so much for putting forward these concrete and also inspiring examples how on a granular level you're taking on the bias and the gender stereotypes. Because Uti, the bias is ingrained so deeply in our societies. What you are looking at is how these powers, external powers, are also looking at these vulnerabilities, especially when it comes to targeting politicians. Could you give us more insight into that? On what you have seen and observed when it comes to politicians?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, this is a vulnerability that's in our society. So it's not put there externally. They are just using whatever they can. And
when you say vulnerability, could you just expand what you mean, our vulnerabilities?
Well, gender inequality or any inequality is something that's in our society. That's maybe the downside of democracy. Like there is the freedom of speech, but then the other corner of the coin is that you can say many things online. And so it's systemic vulnerability, so to speak. So basically what they're doing, they're finding everything they can use. This is not the only thing, but it's a very powerful thing because it's so emotional. And then just targeting it. So I can also share a few examples how this has been done in recent years against women politicians. So, for example, when Annalena Baerbock was running to be the next German chancellor after Angela Merkel in 2021, she was then the Green Party leader. She also had very strong opinions against Nord Stream 2 at the time that didn't work very well for Russia. And she was really leading the polls, but then there was like a massive smear campaign online that has been proved that it was also amplified by Russian bots. There were deepfake images saying that she had been a sex worker earlier in her life. And also they were using attitudes as well. She has 2 small children at home, so she should rather stay there and be their mom and not be running to this big political role.
And as a German, I have to say, I remember exactly this campaign that when Annalena Baerbock ran and also still as a foreign minister later, she got constantly this social media campaigning against her because she's a woman. And I also saw many media, to be honest, then picking it up, right?
Yes, unfortunately.
So the campaigning that is going on to tapping into those cliches and roles, the danger is that we pick it up by mainstream media, for example, right? This is what this is the target they're doing.
Yeah, because it's raised so many emotions. This also happened actually to the Finnish former prime minister.
Yes.
Who was 35 years old. a lady who was dancing in a video in her free time in a party, and this like Finnish media tried to kill her after it, basically. Well, they didn't quite succeed, but it still hampered her work for more than 3 weeks. She had to do drug tests and give countless testimonies that she is still fit to do her job. If we compare, had it been our current prime minister, who is an elderly gentleman, this would have maybe created a few funny memes, but it would have been the same thing.
You are exposing basically also through which how many more layers women have to go through to be successful in leadership positions, right? And something that many of us just perceive between the lines. It's sometimes just this feeling that something may not be right with her. You also looked at Kamala Harris's campaign.
Yeah, also there were two things. Well, first, when she was running, nominated to be Joe Biden's deputy, what's the word?
Vice president?
Vice president,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so then there were immediately these hashtags like, oh, it's Joe and the Hoe, and Heels Up Harris, suggesting that her whole political career was just based on the fact that she had slept her way on the top. And this was born in the United States, but then when she was running to be the president in 24, Russian bots found these hashtags and they started amplifying them again, and even Russian state media. So this is something that I'm trying to make visible, that it's not just something that is in our societies, but it can be used and weaponized from outside.
Thank you so much for putting the spotlight on that. And by the way, we would like to involve you too and your remarks and your questions. If I can ask the technicians to show the QR code again. It's the same QR code as earlier, where you can also ask questions if you're watching us online, but we will also open the floor here for you in the room if you want to just raise your voice, of course. I would just like to come to Paola, because these disinformation campaigns, you're covering also. Well, there's senior female politicians here in Brussels. I'm thinking of the president of the European Commission, the president of the European Parliament. They're women. Do you notice these campaigning as well, that they are getting a harder time also in the media, maybe because they're women?
Yes, I have seen it, but I must admit that I have been covering EU policy, so this is not the kind of topics that I usually cover. But of course, again, we are talking about education, right? So it's also in the responsibility of every journalist to say, okay, we're seeing all these videos or we're seeing all this information. Should we publish this? Should we give them a voice? So at the end, of course, they're thinking about clicks. So how do we get more viewers? This could go viral online. So probably this is the logic behind media trying to publish all these stories or videos or whatever. And from my point of view, of course, this is not the right way to get clicks and views, and it shouldn't work that way. So whenever I see something like this, or whenever I saw something like this in the past, I always try to reach out to my colleagues and say, hey, I think this is not correct, this headline is not correct, or it should be modified so it's more respectful. I have seen it as well with some stories related to LGBTIQ. So I have mentioned in the past, for example, this language could be a bit offensive, So just in case, I would modify this story. If you can, of course, talk to the editor-in-chief or to the responsible of that story, whoever wrote that story, you can always say it in a polite way. And I think this is, it's a good practice that we should all be trying to expand, right?
Thank you for sharing, because you also got a question from Slido, from one of the audience, that says, what is the importance of communicating gender issues? How should the media communicate on gender inequalities? What is your experience on that?
Yeah, so of course, this is the thing, right? We are trying to save the agenda as news outlets, and if we don't get a voice, of course, it is a bit difficult. So I have also experienced in the past that during editorial meetings, for example, it is a bit more complicated for some of us to raise our voices and try to explain things and try to pitch ideas. also, and especially this year, right? There are so many things going on foreign affairs, on security, on defense. These are very important topics. I'm also covering defense, so I won't say the opposite, but we also gotta be aware that progress is slow on gender equality and that we shouldn't taking it for granted. So indeed, we need continued efforts on this front, and it is a good way to do so by publishing stories on what is being done and what else can be done, because this is something that I always try to do with my colleagues. So if the Commission is presenting something, we will be the first ones to cover that, but we don't want to be complacent. So if there are more things that should be done, we also have to highlight them. And I think that's also my role, to reach out to different stakeholders and see different positions and always try to get better and improve and try to give or to bring more female voices into our stories. And there are platforms where you can actually find female experts on every field. And this is very useful for me, of course, but also for conferences, high-level panels in Brussels and in other countries, right? So
you're mentioning the Brussels binder, right?
Yes.
There are these platforms where we can find women experts.
Yes.
For everybody out there who says we didn't find a woman.
We have done it at Euronews many times. We had Brussels My Love, for example, and it was an unwritten rule, but we always try to have a balanced panel. So even though sometimes it was very challenging, especially for some topics, we always try to reach out to everyone in town to see if we could have a gender-balanced panel. And whenever we couldn't, it was like a failure for the whole team. So yeah, this is a nice way to also normalize that there are female experts on defense and finance and other male-dominated policy areas.
Thank you, Paula, for shedding a light on that. I would like to come also to the role we hear from so many stereotypes and biases. And Christian, later on, I would also like to ask you, we need to talk about the role of men, of course, in dismantling gender stereotypes. And for that, I would like to bring in an expert from the floor. I will actually come down to you. It's Kira Appel from the Danish government. Kira, let's have a small applause to welcome you. Kira, welcome. You are the director for international gender equality in the Danish government, and from your biography, you have actually dedicated your entire career, the last decades, to gender equality. Yes, so thank you for being here. First of all, let me ask you also, Denmark has the EU presidency at the moment. What the Danish government has put forward there on gender stereotypes. Could you talk to us about that?
Sure, and hello. So yes, gender stereotypes has been one of the main priorities for the Danish presidency, because gender stereotypes is the most fundamental cause of inequalities. So we have taken it up at political level, and we have taken it up with politicians, ministers, and so on. But we couldn't have done that without EIGE, because EIGE has made a fantastic brief. A document that shows how gender stereotypes permeate all our society. And they have linked it so cleverly to the index as well. So we've got this missing link now. We've had laws, we've had all these initiatives, but why haven't we achieved gender equality yet? Because of gender stereotypes.
So there's a report, right? That we can look up.
EIGE has made a fantastic report, and I'm sure that it's down there somewhere. And please read it, because it shows us, and it was also a little bit about what Jolanta told us about. And let me just say that the report shows something really, really important. It shows that gender stereotypes, there are gaps between generations, between gender, between countries, and between domains. So it's not natural. It's not something that biology. We can't excuse gender inequalities by biology or this is just the way it is. It proves that it's cultural and that it can be changed. And that is one important issue, because it also proves, you talked about men and boys, it also proves that both men and boys, women and girls are, first of all, restrained by gender stereotypes, but that they also both of them, both genders, are reproducing it. So we are in a vicious circle where also women reproduce gender stereotypes. Women mothers gives it on to both their daughters and their sons, as well as men. So this is a main take that we've had during our presidency. It can be changed, but we have to take the root causes. And I have some very good examples.
Please come in, because I know that in the Danish government you're working a lot to involve men and boys as well in this work as a key change.
I'd like to give two quick examples. One involving women and gender stereotypes, and that's women in STEM. Because we've done, a lot, and one of the things that Denmark did was that we made a Girls' Day in STEM. We need to encourage girls and recruit girls into it. So we made a Girls' Day in STEM, and we had a lot of businesses and construction businesses, and they really want to recruit women. They actually want, because they want the best, and they want both women and men to get into this area. And they were very sweet. So the first time we made it, this big construction firm came and wanted to recruit girls by making pink helmets. And you see, that's the point. Even though they were trying to dismantle gender stereotypes, they also reproduced them. And that's why we really need to, as experts, to work with companies. To explain how gender stereotypes work. So that's my one recommendation. Work with companies, all you experts, explain what it actually means to dismantle gender stereotypes and use role models. My second example is men in care, because men actually want to be in care. A lot of times they don't do it because of gender stereotypes, like Jolanta also explained. They're not regarded as competent. So we actually see in Denmark that a lot of men are easily to recruit into the care sector, but it's difficult to recruit them into smaller children. And then when they are recruited, they come out in the workplace, in the kindergartens, and then what do the leaders do out there? They recruit them, and then they say, oh, it's so wonderful to have men, because please do our IT. Please do the maintenance, change the light bulbs, or go out and play football with the kids. So again, they're recruited, they want to dismantle gender stereotypes, but they're reproducing them out there at the workplace. So we have to keep on working and keep on dismantling these gender stereotypes. Otherwise, it simply won't work. So all us experts, we need to continue also when they are recruited in the first place. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kira, for your voice, for your inspiration, for the actions you're taking on behalf of the Danish government. You're inspiring us all. Please keep going.
Yes.
And please stay here, in case somebody wants to talk to you or questions.
Yes. Let me just give you my final vision, because you asked about visions. And my vision is definitely that we break down all these boxes that we create for both women and men, include men and boys, and understand that gender equality is not a nice to. Gender equality is actually, like we've heard, a prerequisite for democracy and for our safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Kira Apple from the Danish government. And once I'm here on the floor, I would like to bring in a second expert. We've just heard about care work, and I would like to introduce you to Emma Holton. Emma, thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Emma, you are an online human rights activist. I would also call you a feminist and gender policy consultant, and you are also, an expert in feminist economics. You're looking a lot on stereotypes as well, on many women being pushed in the workplace into very masculine ideas of power.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for this, and thank you for having me. I think thinking about the workplace, I think sometimes we're maybe phrasing the questions wrong, because I think that when we look at some of the stereotypes that women are hit with, they are hit with an expectation to be caring, socially competent, kind, prioritizing your family.
Even at the workplace.
At the workplace, right? And these are not bad things. The issue is not that we're expecting this from women. The issue is that we're not expecting it from everybody. Let me give you an example. At the University of Copenhagen, they researched the invisible work in the workplace. So who was making the Christmas party? Who was taking on the extra student helpings? Who was making sure that there was conferences being done, all this? And they found out that female professors did 61% more of this type of work than male professors did. And there is nothing wrong with doing this work. The problem is not that women are doing it. The problem is that the men are not. So I think instead of sometimes saying that we should crush the stereotypes we are hitting women with, we should expect the same thing of men as we expect of women. Kindness, social competence, care work, social sensitivity in difficult situations, helping at home, etc., etc. And maybe asking the bigger questions, which is, what do we think is a good person? What do we think it is fair to expect of a person, no matter their gender? And a lot of the things we expect of women is actually great expectations to have of a good person.
Thank you, Emma, for your insights. We so often think it's professional to be tough and assertive, but you're saying it's professional to be kind and to be caring as well.
Yeah, I think oftentimes when women are caring in the workplace, we will say, oh, she has a great personality or something like that. But actually being caring is an incredibly important competence in a modern economy. Understanding social relationships, understanding who needs what at what time, how do I need to act, when do I smile, these types of things are incredibly important in the modern labor market, and not just something about personality.
And they need to be rewarded, right? With
I think
promotions,
so.
with projects
exactly.
that you're getting at the moment, as we just heard, is often seen as a nice to have. And this is actually also where we come to your book.
Yes.
You were an author.
Do you want me to show it?
Yes, please.
This is like TV shop. You know?
Absolutely. I said to Emma to show the book because I think your book is amazing. It's called Deficit: How Feminist Economics Can Change the World.
Yes.
And you are saying that especially care work needs to be valued and needs to be measured so that it's being rewarded economically.
Yeah, I think we're talking a lot about inequality in the workplace and in the labor market today. And I have to say there is one thing that matters more than anything in women's labor time. And it is, as we saw in the introduction, it is having children, whether or not you do that. As soon as you have children, first of all, your time changes, right? Many women start working part-time. Many women go from the private sector to the public sector. But many women are also perceived different. So in the workplace, if you have children and you sit at work until 7 o'clock, people will ask you, why are you not at home with your children? So as soon as a woman becomes a mother, actually her entire way of being in the world really changes. And that means that we still have a dynamic in I think both in feminism and gender equality, where we sometimes think, okay, how can women's lives look as much as men's as possible? We've been fighting for that for many years and for good reason. But I think what I am asking now is, what would it look like if men's lives started looking more like women's? If we saw women's as an ideal life, a life of care, a life of balance, a life of social priority, instead of right now, we're in a work situation where really successful women will hire poorer women, often migrant women, women who have less power, to do their care work, taking time away from the poorer women's time with their children. So, and I think this is simply not a sustainable dynamic. And I think having an entire society where everyone works the way that men are currently working is completely unsustainable, and will not be possible to achieve. So instead, getting men home and breaking the stereotypes that we've already talked about with men's care is incredibly important, also for women, maybe more important.
Emma, thank you so much for your views.
Thank you.
Again, how feminist, this was the microphone, how feminist economics will actually change the world. Thank you for the perspective change. And we've just heard, coming back to us here on the panel, how we need to involve men. We have already also touched on it. Christian, can I come to you? Because I first of all, I saw your jumper and I want to hear a little bit about that. I would also like to know a bit more how you perceive your work, doing your work on discrimination and gender equality as a man.
Well, I have very mixed feelings about all of that, and I will come to that. But first, about my shirt. So this is indeed part of a campaign that was done already several years ago, and I absolutely love this message because it goes like you can understand it in so many different layers. So basically, stereotypes are really often expressed through descriptive words of how we are or how the other people are. And then people interpret these words according to their cultural or social background or whatever. So they give meanings to these words. In Estonian, this whole thing says, also you can become full-time femme. And femme in Estonian would be a, what is called in English, portmanteau. I think it's where you take two existing words, feminist and mother in Estonian, put them into one word, making up a new word. So feminist mother, it says, forget stereotypes. So this was some time ago, a campaign that we had. And I found these messages in our storage room at the office. It was before my time even. And I absolutely love that. So that's the background of this shirt. But now coming to being a man and working in the field, I think there is where I have mixed feelings, because I feel that sometimes it's much easier for me to work in the field, because, and I realize that I do have privileges there. Privileges like when I go to a room, talk about equality-related issues, sometimes I feel that I'm not criticized to the same extent, for example, as my predecessors who were women. And then I see also how media treats me, or the commentaries in the media. I remember my predecessors, these women that have been working in the field, they were much more attacked because they were women, and the nature of these attacks were different. With me, sometimes I do get comments or hateful messages around my perceived sexuality, but that's about it. Mostly it's about my work and nothing about me being a man. So that's why I do have these mixed feelings around it. I think it's important that men are engaged in this conversation. I mean, absolutely crucial. There's no question about it. But it's also, we always have to keep in mind that we can't also there reproduce these structures of the same privilege.
Thank you for pointing this out. Thank you for your work, Christian, of course, and also for pointing out there is a privilege, and also for being a role model and inspiration for other men, because we need men allies in that who are aware of what is going on and also how gender inequality disadvantages men, right? So absolutely, thank you for all of your contributions. I would still like to come to you, Jennifer, and of course, when we still have a question here, could you also give me a signal so that we can bring you in before we wrap up? Jennifer, there was also a question for you from the audience on why it is so important to involve women in rail and in the transport sector. What difference do women make? Maybe I can combine it with my question to you also, you know, how hard is it for you to implement these measures that you are taking? What barriers are you still facing doing that?
Yes, thank you. To respond to the first question related to why it's also important to discuss with male and a man in the framework of our different actions. As we've seen, stereotypes are deeply rooted and within the CFL group, but also other railways, enterprises, men have been, a lot of men are working there, but also the fathers or grandfathers of these men have been working in these businesses. And now, and in particular with our campaign, where we present women in very masculine railways jobs, sometimes, yes, it's kind of disrupting. It's disrupting an image. It's disrupting a reality, and we've gotten some very positive feedback for our campaign and also a diversity award, but also a lot of questions within the organization, in particular by men. And this is obviously linked to, yes, maybe fear of change. It's also related to maybe, I don't know, jealousy. Why are we kind of presenting men in these jobs? And it's a lot of change in relation to the previous years, etc. But how we can try to continue this dialogue with men, and this is very key, and this is something we want to pursue, is obviously to make sure that we present our actions and our action plan as positive actions and not as positive discrimination. And this is a difference we really want to show and to make sure men also understand this within our organization. And even though we have not been able to find a perfect format to include men in our dialogue, we've started with management, also with the support of the Human Resource Director present here today, and with our Director General. And I think this has been showing some very positive first results. Regarding to the other question on women, I think having women on board is obviously key to us, first of all, to push performance, creativity, to make sure also the services we are giving to our clients are the reflection of our society, to make sure that also questions of female clients are being responded to. We cannot just say, okay, we have 15% women in our enterprise and we have more than, or 50% of women in society. This is very important to us. And as I said, tapping into the potential, we are hiring, and very, very, very small in comparison to big businesses. We are hiring more than 500 people a year. So if we would only tap into the potential of men, this would be really complicated to make sure that our business model is continuing. So it's for us also really an important thing to be to develop ourselves and to perform and to be efficient, obviously.
Talent has no gender, is what you said.
Talent has no gender,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. Do we have questions from the floor? Let's bring you in and let's group your questions so that we can round up afterwards. Can we bring the microphones to Johanna, and then we will continue here.
Thank you very much. Make Mothers Matter, an NGO working for mothers, as the name says it. Of course, we are very grateful for EIGE to bring especially this focus on unpaid care work. We have been dreaming of this, and this is very important, as it was explained. To all the panelists, we agree we need to fight gender equality, gender stereotypes. And one important thing that we do at MMN, and maybe this is something that could resonate with you and the work you do, is that we refrain from mentioning care work and paid care work as a burden. It's not a burden, it's essential for our societies, it's what keeps us alive. And especially if we want to include men to fight and to bring and to be part of this distribution of care, we cannot call it a burden, because it's not a burden. So that's maybe something that we have to be careful of our language. I think it's a responsibility and it's essential.
Thank you for your reflection on care work and for your work on mothers. Let's hear from you. Could you also introduce yourself? And then we hear from your two voices.
Hi, thank you so much for the very insightful panel. My name is Annelies Koesens. I'm the founder of Her Voice EU, a digital platform to make gender equality accessible and inclusive in Europe. And my question is actually building on how to engage more men and boys, specifically on the digital platforms and digital spheres. I'm curious to know, are there any examples or programs that exist to engage young boys and men online? Because they're getting all of their gender norms and gender, their masculinities from, unfortunately, in the manosphere and toxic influencers. So is there any way that we're tackling this as well? I would be very curious to know. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your question on how let's keep the questions in mind, how we involve men and boys to become actors rather than receivers on digital platforms. We have two more questions here.
Agnès Hubert from Gender 5+, which is a European feminist think tank. the Gender Equality Index is a fantastic resource to fight gender stereotypes in particular, and thank you to the whole team of EIGE for sort of continuing to produce it sort of year after year and making it still comparable. I was a little bit frightened when we talked about sort of changing some of the parameters, but I mean, it's still, the comparability is still very important. We've had a lot of examples as well of sort of the resources we could use to fight gender stereotype. And I would like to sort of mention something we sort of rarely think about and give you an example. It's the Horizon program. There's a lot in the Horizon program, a lot of research program on gender equality. We are, as Gender 5+, involved in particular in something called GEPIC, which is gender empowerment through politics in classrooms. We started from the researchers had found out that girls, I mean, you form the sort of engagement into politics between 11 and 16 mainly, right? In particular through schools, right? And girls, in particular in participative classes, internalize these stereotypes and do not take the floor.
So we need to work on education again.
Exactly.
Start very early.
And our team of researchers have worked for 3 years on it, and they've developed a sort of a 5 lessons program which can be used in school, which has been experimented in about 200 schools in 6 countries, and which is really sort of empowering children, teenagers, not only to sort of see why they should engage into politics, but why gender equality is one of the fundamental of democracy and how they can sort of change things for the better. And I think
thank you so much.
Education
can you tell us where we find these 5 lessons? So as an inspiration, where can we find?
GEPIC, and I can certainly sort of send it to, but gepic.com is our website.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience and for your work. Could you pass on the microphone just 2 rows behind you for our final contribution question?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ruth Lopian from the European Commission, DG Mobility and Transport, and I'm also in charge of the Women in Transport platform. And this is why I'm very happy that Jennifer is here, because CFL is also a member of that platform. And Jennifer was already mentioning the untapped potential when we're not recruiting enough women, which is key, especially also for the transport sector. And this is why I have a question specifically for Christian. Are you measuring somehow the cost of gender inequality, the cost that it takes that we lose half of STEM students for ICT jobs afterwards, that we are not having enough women in the workplace, not only in the transport sector, but this is concerning many other sectors as well. So this would be interesting.
Thank you for your contributions, for your questions. Shall we start right with that one? Christian, what is the price of not including women? Then we also heard the question on the digital sphere and the involvement of men and boys. Whoever would like to come in on that. And then we start our closing round.
So we don't measure that specifically. However, EIGE had several years ago a report on macroeconomic benefits of gender equality, which really looked at what you were asking. I don't remember anymore the figures there. They were calculated for the EU and not to, if I recall, not to on the member state level. But it's definitely a report very rich in information and gives sort of overall picture. Mm-hmm. But I would like to come very briefly also on the other question regarding the digital platforms, and our ex-president Kersti Kaljulaid established years already a foundation which one of the programs is on gender-based violence. And now this autumn they launched a very, very interesting campaign. It's Red Pill. So it's targeting actually young men, and it's also led or engages young men online, and it's kind of rethinking the questions and arguments that are used in in a way, in a very bad way, in a manosphere, and then making the boys ask themselves if that's really what's the interpretation of this question or this statement would be. I'm happy to give you afterwards the links or contacts even to the campaign.
Thank you so much. And if I may, because we have to wrap up, I would like to ask you a short round of final, just personal insights. We're facing very challenging times on gender inequality. We still have a long way to go on stereotypes. However, what gives you hope and confidence during this time? Is there something at a personal level or from your professional life that says, we're going to keep going? Paula?
Yes, so I'm very positive and I'm very hopeful because I'm surrounded by a lot of powerful women, and especially in my previous newsroom, I also felt very, very backed by my older colleagues, female colleagues. So whenever I couldn't raise my voice, they tried to help me out, and for editors to listen to me and to my ideas. So that's been, I don't know, a very nice thing to see, but also I see many things going on in Brussels. This European Citizens Initiative, which gather more than 1 million signatures for women to get safe access to abortion. So whenever they don't have enough financial resources, they can travel to other member states and do so, right? And even at the European Parliament, we also saw that some things that were unthinkable a few years ago about proxy vote, so they can vote whenever they are pregnant and they are in their member state, they can still exercise their right because they don't have parental leave. And this was crazy a few years ago, and now it's happening. Metsola listened to the news reports, to the MEPs complaining about it, to NGOs, civil society organizations. So this gives me a lot of hope for the future.
Thank you for sharing hope in the workplace, solidarity in the workplace, and at legislative level at the European Parliament. Thank you, Paula. Uti, what gives you hope in your daily work?
I see that we have 40 seconds left, so I try to be brief. But I mean, every time when there is work to be done, for example, this event, every time when there is a new report, there are studies that are showing that this is not just something that happens to women, but there are statistics and there are proof. That gives me hope because it also, as said before, it validates women's experiences. And this is not just something random that happened to me or someone else, but it's systematic and it keeps happening. And we keep fighting against it.
Thank you for your work and also for the Gender Equality Index to showcase these examples. Thank you, Uti. Jennifer.
Yes, thank you. I would say against the international background of simplification of regulation related to sustainability, but also the different setbacks in relation with diversity. Polls show that CEOs are still very much placing into the center social issues, including gender equality in their businesses, including our CEO, where in our strategy, really, our staff is deeply related with our different objectives and goals. And yes, businesses, and this is something, the message today is also have a responsibility to make sure that men and women has the same conditions of success. And this is also the message we want to show and discuss in March 2026, where we're organizing actually a big event in Luxembourg called the Empowering Journey Summit, to gather actually CEOs but enterprises at large around this topic. And Helene is going to be our special guest. Thank you for this, and do not hesitate if you want to join. And this is an event we are co-organizing with the Ministry of Gender Equality and Diversity, who is present here today as well, and our Minister Yuriko Bakes, who is very active and inspiring.
So everybody in Luxembourg, 5th of March, come to CFL to your important conference. Thank you, Jennifer. And Christian, very briefly, what gives you hope?
Yeah, very briefly. I think what gives me hope is my inbox. Of course, that every day that people are sending their emails describing what has happened to them and the discrimination that they've been facing or the injustice that they've been facing. Maybe 10 years ago, it was considered normal. They didn't question like something that happened to me that was wrong. But nowadays, they already understand that this, what happened to me, is not normal. And that shows me also the resilience of people, that they want to push through, they want to go and fight for their rights. And I think that's a very hopeful message for me.
Thank you so much to all panelists for your stories, insights, and positive outlook. I'm really grateful. Thank you very much. May I ask you to take the seat again? And it is time to close our conference with a big finale, actually. We have two amazing speakers still to look out at the future of gender equality. We have just heard from the Danish presidency, and from the 1st of January onwards, we will actually be led by the Cypriot government to move forward on gender equality as well. And we're so happy to have you here, the Commissioner for Gender Equality of Cyprus, Josie Christodoulou. Thank you for giving us an outlook on the Cypriot presidency on gender equality. Josie.
Commissioner Labib, my friend Carlene, before I start, if I may just say that if I was to sum up what we heard, I think the main message is that we need to change the narrative. And we need to stop pushing women, as you said, Emma, towards the male, masculine professions. And we need to understand why care is undervalued. And if we speak strictly on demand and supply, for care, the demand is always there. So why is undervalued? So we must understand and speak in financial terms as well. And another last comment is the fact that within a room of, I don't know, we're 80 people here, 90 people, there are 6 men. And statisticians, that is what? 7%. So I think the problem is here already. And with this, I just wanted to note this. And with this, I just to say that it's a great honor to be with you today. And thank you, the European Institute for Gender Equality, for the opportunity to present the priorities of the upcoming Cyprus presidency of the Council of the European Union. Before doing so, and on the occasion of today's launch of the Gender Equality Index, I would like to express our deep appreciation to EIGE for its invaluable and continuous work in promoting gender equality across the European Union. Thank you for your commitment, the guidance you provide, and knowledge, as well as tools that you offer to policymakers throughout Europe. These contributions support us all in building more equal, just, resilient societies. So thank you. And dear friends, we know very well that the road towards full and substantial gender equality is still long. You mentioned 50 more years. But it is a road we walk together. Europe has the tools, the expertise, and the commitment to lead globally in defending women's rights and promoting their empowerment. Cyprus, through its presidency, stands ready and determined to contribute actively to strengthen our shared agenda, raise the visibility of gender equality, and respond decisively to emerging challenges, especially those arising in the digital age. As Cyprus assumes the presidency of the Council of the EU in less than 30 days, we have placed 2 central priorities at the heart of our gender equality agenda. 1, preventing and combating cyber online violence against girls, and 2nd, promoting gender equality in the shipping sector, breaking stereotypes. We're living in a world transformed by rapid technological change, artificial intelligence, and new forms of social interaction. And while these developments bring immense benefits, they also carry risks that disproportionately affect women and girls. The digital world offers unprecedented opportunities for learning, innovation, and connection. Yet, it has also become a space where harassment, abuse, surveillance, and other harmful behaviors proliferate. The digital gender gap is not only about access or participation, it is fundamentally about safety, dignity, and human rights. Girls and women face disproportionate levels of cyber harassment, violence, non-consensual sharing of personal material, online stalking, sexism, deepfakes, revenge pornography, and other forms of violence and sexual violence. These acts do not remain confined to screens. They shape opportunities, they silence voices, and inflict real, emotional, psychological, and even physical harm. And this is unacceptable. So creating a secure digital environment is a shared responsibility. It requires coordinated action by institutions at all levels, by technology companies whose platforms shape daily life, by educational systems that foster digital literacy, and by all members of the society. Only through cooperation, we can build a digital ecosystem where women and girls feel safe to learn, create, express themselves, and lead. This is why Cyprus, we have placed this issue at the forefront of the presidency. In this respect, during our presidency, we will place particular emphasis on the two critical areas identified by the Beijing Platform for Action, the girl child, and violence against women. This thematic area is also directly related to the Council of Europe Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence, the new EU Directive on Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence, of course the EU Roadmap on Women's Rights and the forthcoming strategy, but also as gender-based violence is one of Cyprus's top priorities as members of the UN Human Rights Council. To this end, more specifically, what we're doing, a central pillar of our work for the presidency will be the forthcoming EIGE report on cyber violence against girls across the EU, prepared on behalf of the Cyprus presidency. This important study will examine how girls perceive cyber violence, their ability to recognize it, whether as victims or bystanders, and their experience in reporting incidents to authorities, platforms, parents, and teachers. This report will serve as a foundational document for the drafting of the Council conclusions to be adopted by the EPSCO Council in June 2026, ensuring that our work is evidence-based and centered on the realities of young women's lives. Preparations are already underway for the meeting of the high-level group on gender mainstreaming to be held on the 16th and 17th of February in Nicosia. This meeting will coordinate actions, exchange good practices, and promote the development of gender-sensitive policies, including gender budgeting across Europe. Cyprus will also continue to strongly support EU-level initiatives, as we did with the new EU Roadmap for Women's Rights, endorsed in June 2025, and the forthcoming European Strategy for Gender Equality. A dedicated event will be held in Brussels on the 5th of March. During the 17th session of the UN Commission on the Status of Women in March 2026 in New York, Cyprus will lead efforts on behalf of the EU. As part of the EU delegation, we will deliver a joint statement, we will host the EU ministerial breakfast and organize a presidential reception, and of course lead a flagship side event on our priority theme, combating cyber violence against girls. And the promotion of gender, I'm sorry, I missed one, I'm sorry. These initiatives will culminate in the Conference on Preventing and Combating All Forms of Violence Against Women, which will take place in Nicosia on 18 and 19 of May. This major event will bring together policymakers, educators, civil society, technology companies, and youth representatives. It will provide a platform to assess progress, align priorities, and shape a comprehensive multi-stakeholder strategy. A particular focus will be placed on the role of men and boys, as well as on the opportunities and challenges posed by digital technologies as catalysts for combating stereotypes and inequalities, and in this way, connecting the priorities of our trio. Through these coordinating efforts, we aim to drive meaningful EU-level action that empowers and protects girls in the digital age. At the same time, and as many of you know, Cyprus, at the local, at the national level, we are intensifying our efforts to promote gender mainstreaming across all sectors of the government. And in this context, and in the framework of the high-level stakeholders conference on 28 April, and the informal meeting of EU Ministers of Shipping on 29 of April, the Cyprus presidency is working towards the Nicosia Declaration, which will focus on two essential pillars: the welfare and education of seafarers, women and men, and the promotion of gender equality in the shipping industry, particularly through encouraging women's entry into maritime professions to achieve more balanced representation. Dear friends, Cyprus will continue to advance broader goals of gender equality, gender mainstreaming, women's economic empowerment, equal participation in decision-making, and strengthen protection against all forms of gender-based violence remain central pillars of our national strategy. To end, I think the message that we need to convey is the fact that a Europe that protects girls online is a Europe that supports equality offline. A Europe that invests in women's economic potential is a Europe that strengthens competitiveness, innovation, and social cohesion. Once again, thank you, EIGE, for your dedication and for continuous support. Thank you.
Thank you, Josie Christodoulou, the Commissioner for Gender Equality of Cyprus. And now let's come to our closing speech, and to me also a personal highlight of our conference, because we look forward to the European Commission's Gender Equality Strategy 2026 that you will present in March, and we are so happy and honored to have you here, the European Commissioner for Gender Equality, Preparedness and Crisis Management, Haja Labib. The floor is yours. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's a pleasure to be here with you to launch this year's Gender Equality Index. It's a pleasure. I'm happy to be here with you. At the same time, I'm very sad, because just like Christy just said, I'm sad to see a lack so few. So, I mean, how can I describe this? A full room of smart women, but only a few men invested in this debate, which concern all of us. And allow me maybe to start with a challenge for next year. I will launch this challenge right now. I will ask to all of you to bring one man with you for next year, for the next gender index, okay? Let's try. I will involve myself, of course. I will not come without a man, I promise you. So I count on you for the next year. And so let's talk about this gender index. This is clearly our yearly checkup or thermometer of gender equality in the EU. And I'm sure you know the expression, if you can't measure it, you cannot fix it. And that's why this index matters so much, and that's why your work matters, and that's why I want to personally thank you for that as well. And this year, you put an extra work to upgrade the methodology to better reflect today's realities. You have put a stronger focus on areas like gender segregation in education and work. We should put also a gender index on segregation in this kind of conference. Inequalities affecting single parents, households, and inequalities that cut across different grounds of discrimination. These and all the improvements you have implemented make the index even more relevant for policymakers. And this is, of course, crucial, because precise and high-quality data is the bedrock of effective policy. It helps governments see clearly, make smarter decisions, and close gender gaps faster. When I read the results of this year's index, I felt two things, two different feelings. hope, and at the same time, impatience. Hope, because that's right, we made some progress, and impatient because I'm impatient for my daughter. I'm impatient for my granddaughter, for all the women I see in this audience today, and all the men as well, and for all women across Europe. Yet, it's encouraging to see that the EU's overall score has improved by over 10 points since 2010. We are going, yes, we can say, in the right direction, but at the current pace, full gender equality is still at least 50 years away. That makes me impatient, clearly, and a little bit angry at the same time. But it also lights, I can assure you, a fire inside me. And I hope it lights a fire also in you, because I refuse to accept that my granddaughter will be my age by the time we finally reach gender equality in the EU. This is not the timeline I want for her. I'm sure this is not the timeline you want for your daughter or granddaughter if you are older as me. And I'm sure it's not the time we all want either, because it is in all our interest. And it comes at a time when we see also a backlash against gender equality, and when progress is not a straight line upward, but a roller coaster up and down. Women don't need a roller coaster. They need a strong commitment in one direction, forwards. It's worrying that progress is so uneven across the EU. Our women and girls should find equality wherever they go in our union. And that's why we are here today, to say loud and clear, we are committed to gender equality, and it needs to happen faster and not as a snail, at a snail's pace. And this is precisely why I launched the Roadmap for Women's Rights in March, and why we hosted a landmark event in October where all member states, the European Parliament, EIGE, and many other stakeholders endorsed the Roadmap of Women's Rights, the Declaration of Principles for a Gender Equality Society. And I want to thank again EIGE for your strong support. For me, personally, this Roadmap for Women's Rights endorsement ceremony was a special moment and a moving experience. At a time when we hear so much noise from those trying to push us back, together we created, I don't know if you were with us, some of you I'm sure were present, we created a very beautiful moment of unity and determination. I believe we all felt this wave of solidarity and the feeling that pushing forward is so much stronger than pushing back. I left that event confident and even energized. And next year, we will keep up the momentum. Ahead of International Women's Day, we will adopt the Gender Equality Strategy 2026-2030. This new strategy will outline the concrete measures to advance gender equality, building on the principles in the Roadmap for Women's Rights. And here is where EIGE comes in. Your Gender Equality Index and everything EIGE does is essential for this work. It gives us, in the EU institutions and member states, the data we need to track progress and hold ourselves accountable. This index helps us understand the forces driving gender inequality in the EU. Take the gender pay gap, for instance, or more importantly, the gender earnings gap, the ghost quarter. Really, it struck me, this what we call the ghost quarter. Women earn, on average, just 77% of men's incomes, meaning they work the equivalent of 3 months a year for free. An entire quarter, indeed. And women in couples earn 30% less than their partners. Fortunately, it's not my case. I prefer like this. Or look at STEM. We talk a lot about the importance of women in science and tech, and yet only 1 in 3 women make up STEM graduates in the EU, and just 1 in 5 ICT specialists are women. Maybe this doesn't surprise us anymore, but it's still disappointing to see that women continue to carry most of the unpaid care and housework, leaving them less time for leisure, career, and public life. These are questions of fairness, and they have a direct impact on Europe's economies and also our competitiveness. Your index, by the way, shines a spotlight on the areas that need our attention, and it lights a spark for us to do better. Dear friends, again, thank you, EIGE, for your excellent work. As Commissioner for Equality, you can count on me, of course, and I will use every tool, every platform, every moment to push Europe closer to true gender equality, and to do it faster than the number predict. Because half a century is quite long, I have to say. And I know that you can count on me, because I know you are just as impatient as I am. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. We are looking impatiently to the European Commission's gender equality strategy in March. Thank you so much for your contribution today. And it's my turn now to thank all of you for being here, also for your flexibility in your agenda. We're overrun a little bit. And thank you, EIGE, for this report. Now it is our turn. The figures in here, the data, this is our power to take action, to take the next steps, to continue the journey. And if you need allies for doing that, you'll find them here in this network area. We still have coffee and snacks for you. I look forward to meeting you there, and I wish you a wonderful afternoon. Let's keep going, and let's use the EIGE's Gender Inequality Index. Thank you so much, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.